Okay, so welcome back. So this is how we left our last little video. We have gone through what biomolecules are, so chemicals made in the body. We've gone through nutrition, how an organism obtains and uses its food. We know why we need to eat, so source of energy, chemicals for cell reactions, growth and repair. We have gone through carbohydrates now, so that is gone. And we're going to have a little look now at lipids and proteins for this section of video. So again, this was what we had for carbohydrates. We need to know the structural and metabolic roles of them, and we need to know their sources. So similarly, in lipids, it's going to be the same thing. So just to begin with, we need to be aware that lipids, their elements in there are again CH and O. So we know that the C is carbon, we know H is hydrogen, and we know that the O is oxygen. We knew from carbohydrates that they were in a fixed ratio. So they had the formula CxH2OY. We don't have that general formula now. So here there is no fixed ratio for their arrangement. So that's kind of one difference between carbohydrates and lipids. Same elements, but just different arrangements. And then we can kind of subdivide lipids into what we call fats and what we call oils. So the only difference between these two things is fats are solid at room temperature and oils are liquid at room temperature. So they are two different types of lipids. Now, so then we're going to break it into the structural and into the metabolic. So I'm just going to go catabolic here. I am going to push that one out to the side. So in terms of our structural, we only really have two types of structural lipids, or two types of arrangement of the carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. So you might have heard the name triglyceride, it might be in a question, and it's just another name for kind of the structure of a lipid. In terms of its composition, so we're going to draw it this way. So it's like a funky E. So this is a glycerol backbone, it's called. GLYEC. So this is a glycerol backbone, and then you have 3 fatty acids attached to it. So it's a glycerol and 3 fatty acids make up a triglyceride or a lipid. And depending on your triglyceride, you will have different fatty acids. So fatty acids can be different. And now we have different types of lipids. So example, milk fat is their butyric acid. In meat, it would be linoleic acid or oleic acid, or not going to come to me now, but that we have different types of acids in there. So depending on what depending on the type of acid, you're going to have a different structure or a different type of fat. So fatty meats, fish, oily fish, avocado, eggs, cheese, they will all have different types of fatty acids in them. So they are triglycerides. Then on the other one that we have, our other version of it, is a thing called a phospholipid. Now again, you should have seen this when we would have talked about it when we did cell membranes. We might have drawn something that looks like this for a phospholipid, so I'll go back into that again. So in terms of this one, composition, it still has the glycerol backbone. So that is still a thing, except this time we only get 2 fatty acids, because at the third position there is going to be a phosphate group. So we get a glycerol, we get 2 fatty acids and a phosphate group. Now, when we drew our cell membrane way ago, we might have drawn something like this, where it has the circles and we had the little tails coming out, and we might have had our carrier proteins in there. We might have had structural proteins in there, transporter proteins in there. We had all of these different ones in there. But what was, I suppose, important for this is this phosphate group up here is these parts here. So the phosphate can dissolve in water. So this likes water. It's what we call hydrophilic. It likes water. Whereas the tail portions here, these are your glycerol backbone and your fatty acids. So we call these parts, or we say that these portions are hydrophobic. Hydro meaning water, and phobic means it doesn't like it. So when we do our cell membrane, this could be outside of our cell, and this is the inside, but the phospholipids arrange themselves in this way so that the cell contents are protected from the outside, and obviously we don't want it that the cell membrane comes out of solution, so they hide the hydrophobic portion. So again, just a little reminder, we call this a lipid bilayer, and this is in our cell membranes. Now, the other part that we have to look at is the catabolic and anabolic roles of lipids. So one thing that they have, which kind of doesn't come under the catabolic or the anabolic, is they form steroid hormones. So this is to go with our endocrine system. These regulate metabolism for us. We make kind of hormones that are fat-based for all intents and purposes. So that's one portion of it. But we still have the anabolic and the catabolic roles. Last time out, when we did carbohydrates, we talked about CRAP. This actually still applies here. So the catabolic role of lipids is they are used in respiration, as a source of energy, particularly if there's no glucose available. And the bonus thing about lipids is they have 9 kilocalories per gram of lipid, and that is the most kilocalories you get out of any of the biomolecules. Proteins are 4, carbohydrates are 6. So lipids are used in respiration as a source, and in photosynthesis now, we have drawn our little chloroplasts. So when we drew it, we had outer membrane, inner membrane. We drew the stacks. Remember now, again, you have to be able to recognize these stacks from electron micrograph pictures. We had the stacks, and we also had the red plasmid, and we have the little starch granules in there. So the anabolic role, so anabolic again is small to big, needs energy. The anabolic role of lipids is they are found in these thylakoid membranes, they're called. So thylakoid membrane. And this keeps the chlorophyll in place for photosynthesis. So chlorophyll. So we want the chlorophyll to stay in place for photosynthesis. So we have a catabolic role and an anabolic role, and we also have the little steroid hormones up here that are important for metabolism. Okay, so this is our overarching stuff for lipids. We're going to have a look at proteins now. So in terms of our proteins, again, proteins, this will be my shorthand for proteins. So CHONPS, kind of chomps in my head is what it sounds like. So these are the main elements, the CHON, and there will be some PNS in it. We obviously have said that CH and O are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, but what makes protein special, really special, is the nitrogen that's in it. Some will have phosphorus and some will have sulfur, but not a whole lot. So CHON are your main elements in your protein, not a fixed arrangement. In terms of their structure now, we have 4 families of them, and you can see the last one of the families is proteins. So again, this is on the basis of shapes for yourself. So amino acids, these are like the building blocks for protein. There are 20 what we call naturally occurring amino acids. So 20 different shapes. I'm only going to draw a selection of them here, but it might be a circle, it might be a square, it might be a triangle, it might be the little hexagons that we had earlier, it might be something that's star-shaped, but there's 20 different shapes. And as I say, the amino acids are our building blocks. We then get to peptide, polypeptide, and protein. And when we're talking about these, we're talking about how many amino acids are in a peptide or in a polypeptide or in a protein. So a peptide has less than 20 amino acids in it. So these guys are going to be all joined together. So I might have circle, circle, square, triangle. I might have the little star thing. And when they're joined together, the link that joined them together is called a peptide bond. So peptides have less than 20 amino acids. If I'm a polypeptide, I will have between 20 and 200 amino acids to be called a polypeptide. And again, these guys are going to be joined together by this peptide bond. So obviously we're not going to draw them, but they will be like really big chains of loads and loads of amino acids. So proteins, the thing that we call proteins, to be a protein, you have to have greater than 200 amino acids. And there's 2 ways then that these proteins, can arrange themselves. So again, they're going to be joined by a peptide bond. But it may be that a protein is what we call fibrous. So in terms of those, there's going to be hardly any folding of the protein chains. So there's very little folding going on. They are very long fibers. So if we were going to draw them, we would be drawing them just as literally straight lines together. So your muscle, if you're a meat eater, is a thing called myosin. And if in our hair and our nails, it is called keratin. So you can see your hair is just long fibers. But technically it's the same stuff that makes your hair as make your nails, and these are called fibrous proteins. The other ones are, if you're not fibrous, you are what we call a globular protein. And when we go on to enzymes, we'll talk more about globular proteins. So these are 3D folded proteins. What does that mean? And these guys are enzymes specifically. So what does that mean? So this might be one polypeptide chain and it folds up. This might be another one, polypeptide chain, and it folds up. This could be a third one and it folds up. And somewhere in it there will be a slot, a hole in it, an active site. And when we get into our enzymes, that will make more sense. So we're either fibrous or globular type proteins, and when we're there, we have more than 200 amino acids. Okay, so that's all the structural arrangement. The metabolic arrangement, there's a little bit more to proteins because we use them for our enzymes and things, but we also have protein hormones, just in the same way we had steroid hormones. And again, this is to regulate metabolism for us. So hormones are just chemical messengers. So that's going to regulate metabolism for us, is one of its roles. We know about the structural or channel or transporter proteins in cell membranes. So we've done those when we did our cell structure. So transporter proteins. We know about the receptor antigens on the surface of the cell membrane. So when we draw those, they were the little things that kind of looked like this when we drew them on our surface. They help in immunity, so they tell our bodies that this thing belongs to us or it is a foreigner, so they recognize the antigens. And the last one, which is probably one of the most important one, it makes antibodies for us, and that helps to fight again, foreign antigens, things that are not natural to us. Antigen just stands for antibody generating. Really, the most important thing that proteins do for us are antibodies and enzymes. They are the big thing for us. So when we go to the catabolic and the anabolic here, we can't use crap now, but the catabolic role, one of them would be digestion. So the enzyme amylase will go after, breaks down starch and turns it into maltose for us, and then finally it'll turn it into glucose, and that can get into our blood supply for us. So we know that maltose is a disaccharide. So again, amylase is going chunk here. It is going chunk here, and it is making us maltose. So that is the catabolic amylase. Can't spell amylase today. The anabolic one we've also done. So the anabolic one in DNA replication way back. So remember, anabolic is big to small. So we had this enzyme DNA polymerase way back when we were doing our nucleic acids. So enzymes are biological protein catalysts. They speed up a reaction for us. They don't get used up, and we will do more of them in our next topic. So we had this diagram of a nucleotide, a sugar phosphate, and a base. So this was the phosphate, this was the sugar. And in DNA replication, the DNA polymerase is going to come along, and it will literally form the join between here and here. So that is our anabolic example for proteins. So again, for all of the three things that we've done, we've looked at carbohydrates, protein, and lipid, and it's a structural and it's metabolic, and then it becomes their sources. So that's the last bit that we have to do over here. So our sources of our proteins, you will eat meat, you can have fish, you can have beans, peas,